Start the discussion, and then would like to have your contribution in terms of arranging the questions to the members, and we'll take it forward. So I'll call Vanita Viswanath first to make a presentation.
Is always a tough one, and especially tough when you've had young people last evening and you've had them calling us all skeptics, the slightly older ones, and I hope that, and there was a word called adequacy that was used yesterday, and I hope I can be reasonably adequate this morning, and also make sure that we're not skeptics. And I think that's the reason this title is most appropriate. I did this before I heard the presentations last evening. And I think this is terribly important because we tend to forget that change is the only certainty. And yes, we do change, even the older ones do change. And I think if we don't change, we're in deep trouble. We are close to becoming irrelevant. And if you want to remain relevant, we must change. The second thing, though, alongside this, is that there's moderation, and that's where I would urge young people to be a little careful. Is the fact that that's the only workable aspiration. And after hearing a few yesterday evening, it seems like I think many have realized this, that there is no rapid way to get to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is constantly learning and failing. Entrepreneurship there's a very strong element of failure, which has to be recognized and accepted and appreciated. I'm just going to begin two aspects. One is framework for change as we see it in Germany, and then I'll talk a little bit about the framework for action on the basis of this framework of change. We all know about the marketing mix, the P's and so on, and there are a lot of P's that have been added along the way from the original four. Let me add our 2 bits worth of a few P's. We'll also add it and we'll also order it. First one is perception, which to me is something that is often missing in the market-driven world today. And we began, and there is change that we'll see in that. We began with poor as producers long time ago. We never thought of them as consumers. When we all started doing development work, it was always poor as producers. Then you got the market which said poor as consumers, and then we already damned Prahlad last evening, so I won't discuss that now. I don't need to. Now we come to poor as producers and consumers, and this is where we are as an organization. Is the fact that they are consumers. They do need services. There's a lot of technology out there which is not reaching them, and we certainly do. But we mustn't forget them. And how do we do this? How do we do the two together? The second P, there is people already in the marketing mix, but I'm going to add participation, because this is a different way in which we look at people. We have to contest the tradition and we have to manage roles. And the tradition, I will come to that. It's not only practical but strategic inclusion. There's a lot of discussion on practical inclusion, and there is not enough discussion on strategic inclusion. And these concepts, by the way, came from gender theory of practical and strategic. We talked about practical and strategic roles for women, and I adapted it for the inclusion aspect of it. Wage earners versus knowledge holders, decision makers for the market and policy impact. Practical part is the wage earning, that is you give income to women, etc., so that they can increase their wages. The knowledge holders is the strategic part, which is the fact that you have to involve them in participating in a way that can increase their knowledge, even if they don't participate in all parts of the knowledge value chain. The second is management for women's inclusion, social awareness for women, physical movement, the limited, low levels of mobility. And that has to be accepted and appreciated and also worked upon. And systems for home-based producers, somebody mentioned that last evening, and I think that's extremely important. The third is position, but position not of products, but position of people, and I've added power to it. because that's the most important part of how we move people forward. Leverage and bargaining, skills, collectives, entrepreneurship, structures for the above. MBOs are membership-based organizations. PCs are producer companies, cooperatives, small firms, hybrids. These now become extremely important in order to have the positioning of the people such that they can have the power. Framework of action, that's us. What is it that we in Germany do? And this is putting the P's to practice. This is our version of PPPs. We work in 8 states, and so I won't go through all our projects. You'll have enough of that on our website. But I'll just talk a little bit about our models and our principles. On the perception side, what do we do for the incomes of producers? These are two-way value chains. To aggregate produce collected by producers, add value for sale to a range of markets inside and outside the village. We are mostly on non-timber forest produce and agriculture. We've done some amount of craft, but we consciously stayed away from craft. And there's a reason for that. If somebody wants to know, I'll tell you. We started off with craft and we decided to go not to do any more of it. We work mostly on things which are mass volume, which can scale with large, because you need large numbers of producers involved, and this is a large country, and you can't do things for 100 people, 200 people, it costs too much. So we decided to go with things where we can have large numbers. LAC we do in Jharkhand. We are actually primarily recognized for our LAC work in Jharkhand. This is literally 3 lakh producers in Jharkhand work on LAC, or did work on LAC. Some of them don't do it anymore, and that's where we are about reviving it. And LAC is used is lacquer in a variety of things. Mostly a lot of it is for export market. SAL, which is lead plates in Odisha, and Mahua, we did this in MP. And this is a range of markets, not just upgraded markets, but local markets as well. And agriculture, local pulses, bits of chana, etc. that we do. Reducing transaction costs. This is the aggregation. The first part. The second one is the retail. Reducing transaction costs for producers. Essential goods and services retailing to producers and village level service centers. The village level service centers are the anchors of the value chain. They're socially relevant products and essential daily needs. Services like mobile recharge, doorstep delivery is something that we do. Between the 3 states of MP, Jharkhand and Odisha, we now have close to 100 retail VLSEs which are working in different districts. We are constantly researching on what can go through. We are trying to make partnerships with companies. Tata is one of them for tea, for retailing what we call good products. Some of this is FMCGs. The transaction costs are terribly important, especially in Jharkhand, because you work in remote hamlets as well, where there are no retailers. People participation, practical and strategic inclusion, creative and enlightened value chain architecture. Some producers, some entrepreneurs. Not everybody will be an entrepreneur. Not all, but all receive enterprise education and training, and then receive market and financial linkages. The idea is to help them make informed choices of whether they want to be wage earners or they want to be entrepreneurs. It's not something that we impose on them. Management for women's inclusion. This is important to us because we work with women. Training and value addition at village, sometimes at hamlet level. Subsidizing some costs. We can't do value chain work without subsidies. I'm afraid that after years and years of our experience, it is not possible to really reach poor people without some back-end subsidies. That's where government comes in. And we see it as important. It's government's role. That's their job. Time constraints, so ownership is women, management by men. Yes, this is something that we have also realized, that women only work 3 to 5 hours a day. These are statistically significant results now, no matter which part of the country you're in. You have to really increase their incomes dramatically to make them work for our normal work day of 8 hours a day. So ownership of many of these institutions are women, but the men help to manage it. So that's fine, men can be sort of employed to do the legwork. Position and power. How do we do that? Leverage and bargaining through integrated technical and management education inside and outside of Udyogini. We do a lot of education training for NGOs outside. Based on our experience as well as some of the principles of the curriculum that we have developed since 1992. We are known for that, actually, our training work. Structures and institutions, training and value addition at village, sometimes summit level, subsidizing or time constraints. So ownership of it, I don't know if this has got repeated. Informal SHGs at the base, collectives of entrepreneurs and partnership firms. We are thinking in terms of collectives. Usually they talk about producer collectives. Government loves that, producer collectives. But we are focusing heavily on entrepreneur collectives because there are institutions that entrepreneurs need, which the missing middle, as we say, the small and the tiny firms, which really don't get too much government support. Why moderation? And because we have internal challenges. Skills and capacity, constraint, replicability, and scalability. Somebody mentioned replication by principles yesterday, and I think that's true. I think the diversity in the varieties of various models as well as approaches is what will constitute development in this country. It will not be the single mobile phone that goes all over for lakhs of producers. The reason why this scale has been focused heavily on technology is probably because technology is the only thing that you can probably manage large numbers with. Anything that is human resource intensive takes, is very difficult to do across so many cultures. Also technology adaptation might be problematic, so even technology is limited in scale. Ecosystem challenges is the integration part, the integration at higher levels of the chain, where you have financial, etc. Disparate policy and implementation of policy. The scheme-based is not designed for innovation. The National Rural Livelihoods Mission is trying, but again, they depend heavily on how the states deal with it. So our discussion with NRLM in Jharkhand is different from the NRLM in MP, is different from the NRLM in Odisha. So ultimately, NRLM might be a central policy and a central mission, but they very clearly said that states will drive it in the way that the states want to drive it. So our discussions then become much more disparate as a result of that. We really can't handle it nationally, so to speak. Second is financing is not matured to meet innovation demands, especially early stage risk financing for social enterprises. Although we talk a lot about social venture capital, talking a lot about general venture capital, let me say our research on the ecosystem for financing in this space is that it's not mature. There's a lot of talk. You go to various forums. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of hype about it, and there's a lot of encouragement that it's there. But when you try to actually access it, it's really tough to do. And ultimately, we do fall back on the NABARDs of this world who have been time and tested, and somehow we understand the development space a lot better. Interest mismatch, corporate, CSR, supply chain, public-private partnerships. There is strong interest mismatch. Everybody talks about win-win. It's a win-win for a very short time. For the first year, it's a win-win. You try, the whole thing unravels by the second and third year of your relationship with the corporate. And by the fourth year, it's over. Because by then, the corporate has moved on to something else, some other interest. And you're kind of left. And we've actually experienced this with corporates. So I'm speaking from our experience. That's it.